John Kohler with DiscountJuicers.com. Today I have a very special treat for you. What we're going to do is we're going to answer one of the questions I get almost every day, and it's simply this. Hey John, should I get the Omega 8000 series machines, include the 8003, 8004, 8005, or 8006, or should I get the Omega Vert series machines, which include the Omega Vert 330, the Omega Vert 330 HD, or the Omega Vert 350, also known as the Omega Vert 350 HD. So that's a question I get a lot, and the way I can answer that very simply is with an analogy. So the analogy is if you're going to go buy a car, you're going to buy the car that's best going to suit your needs. So if you're a single guy, you go on dates all the time, you like to look snazzy, you're driving up in the hills where they got the curves, and you like speed, of course you're going to probably go for a two-seater sports car to impress the women and just for the sheer performance of sports cars. If you're a family man, you're married and have kids, well then you may probably buy a minivan, so you could tote around the family in the minivan. And of course, if you're a working guy with a hard hat construction worker, you may go out and get a truck because you need to haul around all the materials in the truck and put your tools in the back. And all those vehicles will get you from point A to point B, just like all these juicers on the table will basically juice your fruits and vegetables so that you can get healthier. But they do it in all a little bit different ways, much like the cars, some get better gas mileage, some don't. These juicers, depending on which juicer you're using and what specifically you're juicing, may get higher or lower yields. So this video is going to explain fully the differences between the different models, and also in the process hopefully explain to you which juicer is going to be best for you. Now I also have videos on YouTube comparing these juicers side by side in actual juice testing and juice off, so those may also be valuable to you. So check my other videos on YouTube for those. In any case, first we're going to talk about all these machines. All these machines on the table have one thing in common. They're all called single auger juicers. What is a single auger juicer? So a single auger juicer has a single or one auger, which literally turns, and the auger spins at a low speed, 80 RPMs, compared to some juicers have high speed. They run at 10,000 RPM. So with an 80 RPM, that basically increases the amount of nutrition in the juice because it causes less oxidation to occur. And the other benefit is that they're nice and quiet. So if you have children or roommates sleeping in the morning and you're juicing early, but when you have to go to work, you're not going to wake them up, most likely, with these slow running, more quiet juicers. So the auger is sitting there spinning, and as you put produce in, what happens is it takes a chunk or a bite of the produce off, and then it works it down the auger, and as it works it down the auger, it compresses that produce into a smaller and smaller space, and at which point it literally shreds up the produce, and as it's shredded, it's also releasing some juice. So in these machines, on this machine, the Verts, the juice comes out of this side over here, and the pulp comes out on this side, and on these machines, the juice comes out the bottom and the pulp comes out the front. So while these are all single auger style machines, these are called horizontal augers because the augers run horizontally, and these are called vertical augers, aka Vert, because of the vertical running auger. And each of these extraction methods work a little bit differently, and one extraction method works better for some, and the other kind works better for others, which we'll talk about. But before we do, I want to talk about all the different models, because that in itself can be confusing. So over on this side we have the Omega 8003, we have the Omega 8004, Omega 8005, and Omega 8006 all lined up on the table side by side. And as you can see, they all look very similar. And for the most part, all these juicers, all these parts of all these juicers are all interchangeable. I could take this one, put it on this one, I could take this off this, because they're all basically the same. So let's go over the specific differences between them. So on the 8003 and 8005, these came out first, and these have a 10-year warranty, and these have the standard auger. So this is the standard auger, the standard white auger. So the difference between the 8003 and 8005 is just simply this. It's the color. The color is different. So if you need white to match your kitchen, get this model because it's less expensive. If you have a stainless steel kitchen, you want to get it the black and the chrome color, then get this model because it's going to match your kitchen better. Now, this chrome color is basically a chrome plated plastic, so it's not metal, it's just plastic still, but it has a nicer finish on it. I also find that the black color and the chrome is a little bit easier to keep clean because of all the carotenoids in the carrot juice, the chlorophyll, and the leafy greens that you're going to be juicing, and the red coloring in the beets. The white tends to show the stains more, the black tends to hide it a little bit better. That being said, if you do get the juicer parts stained, not the motor body, but the juicer parts, you can soak these parts in a solution of hot water and OxyClean for about 24 hours to get all the stains off and make it looking like new again. So that's the main difference between these guys, is just only the color's different. So once again, white or chrome and black. And if you're budget minded and don't care about the color, obviously you want to stick with these models on this side because they're going to cost less. Next, let's move up to the 8004 and 8006. Once again, these models are identical except for the color, only the color is different. And on this model, it has a 15-year warranty, so that's 5 years longer than these guys. And the other thing is that it has the upgraded auger. So the juicing screens on both these models are identical. All the juicers are now shipping with this screen. On this side it's stainless, and on this side it's a plastic grid. This plastic grid is 50% stronger than the previous screen, based on testing I've seen. I have a video on that actually. And then this one comes with the 8 times harder auger. Right there, the black auger. So, while nothing's wrong with this one will work. I always encourage people to get the 8004 or 8006 because of the harder auger. It's just more durable. And the other main benefit is the warranty is 5 years longer. So these guys have a 15-year warranty, which is the longest warranty in the juicing industry. And in my opinion, a warranty when you buy a juicer is very important. If you go down to your local department store and buy a juicer, you're probably going to get a juicer with a 90-day or 1-year warranty, which is really short. With a 15-year warranty, you're assured that you'll be able to make juice for the next 15 years. And in my opinion, making vegetable and fruit juices are one of the most healthiest things you can do in your life to preserve your most valuable asset, your health. Your health is your greatest wealth. That's a saying that's said a lot, but I think people really don't take it to heart too often. So I really want you to think about that when buying a juicer. After all, isn't that why you're buying a juicer? To better your health, whether it's to lose weight or rebuild your immune system or whatever it is. In any case, the juices will allow you to do just that. So 15-year warranty, very important. The other differences on these guys are just some small, minute differences, such as the funnel size on these different models are a little bit different. The catch containers are a little bit bigger. And I do have specific videos on YouTube comparing the 8003 to 8004 and the 8005 to 8006 if you're interested in that. To sum it up, if you're going to get one of these, if this style of machine, I'd recommend once again the 8004 or 8006. Moving over to the Omega Verts now, these also are single auger machines, but they're vertical single auger machines. And let's go over the differences between these really quick. This is the Omega Vert 330, and this is the Omega Vert 330 HD. The only difference between these is they're identical except for the screen that's included with the machine. With the standard Vert 330, you get the white screen right there, and with the Vert 330 HD, you get the 8 times harder screen. Both these have the HD or heavy duty 8 times harder auger automatically. So originally we had some issues with the white screen cracking, so then they improved it and came out with the 8 times harder screen, which doesn't have that problem. So I recommend the 330 if you're not going to juice that much. If you're going to juice a couple times a week, 330 should be fine. But if you're going to be a heavy duty juicer and really want to make some major lifestyle changes, I'd recommend the HD model because it's just going to provide you years of trouble-free service. Now on the Omega Vert 330, if the screen does break due to no fault of your own, like you're juicing and it happens to break, Omega will replace that under warranty. So nonetheless, be rest assured that you're going to have a working juicer for the length of the warranty, and we can talk about that next. All these machines on this side have a 10-year warranty, which is still very, very long. While we have this apart, let me show you the differences of the different augers. So on this auger, you can see it's nice and short and actually fat, and this auger is nice and skinny. So this auger could basically, when you put something down into it, it takes a larger chunk or bite of produce off, much like a full-grown man, And this auger, when you put something in, as it comes around, it takes a smaller chunk, maybe like a baby. So you can see this accepts a lot more in at a time. And both these are the harder, 8 times harder augers. Next, we're going to compare the screens on the machines, and you can see the screen here on the 8000 series is much smaller. The screen on the Omega Vert is much larger. So what all this translates into is that it takes a little bit less time to juice in the Omega Vert just due to the screen and the way it feeds the produce in a little bit quicker. That being said, the negative to this is that it takes longer to clean. And the hardest part to clean on any juicer, based on my years of juice experience, is the screen. So this screen is relatively small. It doesn't have a whole lot of holes that you have to clean. There's a screen area here, screen area here. This is a 2-stage juicer, so when you put the produce in, it cracks it up and juice comes out the bottom, and then it rotates down and then juice comes out the front. And on this machine, it's kind of like a 2-stage. Stage number 1 is these top holes, and stage number 2 is these bottom holes. But due to the longer screen area, this machine, the Vert, takes me about double the time to clean. So the Omega 8000 series takes me about 1.5 minutes to clean, and this guy takes me about 3 minutes to clean. Now let's see here, another feature of the Omega Vert, it has automatic wiping blades. So that's kind of nice. So this blade turns around and spins around as you're juicing to clean the screen, to help keep that clean so that you can have a higher yield. So that's kind of nice too. So next, let's go ahead and reassemble the Omega Vert. Once again, it's very simple. It's probably easier to assemble the Omega 8000 series with our Vert. There's some lining up you need to do. On the Omega Vert, on the screen, there's a little red dot, and that red dot needs to line up with the red dot on the side of the body here. You put that in, then you put the auger in, and finally you're going to put the top in. There's a little arrow there that lines up with the red dot. You put that in, then you turn it in place, and it locks into place. Let me go ahead and put this one together really quick. So on assembly, the 8000 series is a lot easier. Let me show you how to assemble that one real quick. Real simple is this comes off with a collar that turns. The funnel comes off. You take the main housing here, put that on, and then you turn this collar to close. Then you can put the funnel on, of course. Then you're going to put the auger in the machine, just stick that all the way in until it seats, and there will be a little bit of space near the end. That's completely normal. You're going to then take the screen with this first screen facing down, slide that into the machine, and finally you're going to put the end cap on here and turn it and lock it into place. So once again, these machines are very simple to assemble. And disassembly is just the exact opposite. They're really simple to disassemble as well. So next, let's go into which machines are better for juicing certain things. So while these are all single auger machines, certain machines are better for juicing certain things than others. So for example, if you want to juice wheatgrass and you want to juice a lot of wheatgrass, then I would recommend the 8000 series for juicing wheatgrass. Why? Well, if you look at dedicated wheatgrass juicers, they're pretty much a single auger juicer designed fairly similar to this. The Vert tends to not juice the wheatgrass quite as well. Another reason to buying the 8000 series would be if you want to juice a lot, and I mean like 60 to 70% of what you're going to juice is going to be leafy greens. You want to juice a lot of leafy greens. These machines work better on leafy greens because after all, leafy greens have a similar consistency to wheatgrass, and it's just going to work a lot better in here with less pre-cutting. Literally, you could put whole kale leaves into these machines. It'll just crush them all up and extract the juice really well. Another reason, if you want to juice a lot of celery, you could put whole stalks of celery in these machines, and it's going to juice really fast and really easily. Now let's go on over to the Vert. If you want to juice, say, a lot of carrots, then I would actually recommend the Omega Vert, because the Omega Vert is almost literally self-feeding. You could stick a carrot in there, it'll actually chunk off and bite off itself so that you don't have to babysit your juicer. With the 8000 series, while it will juice carrots, you have to put a carrot in there, then you may have to use the pusher to push the carrot into the gear, because the gear actually won't bite off the carrot like the Omega Vert will. So the Omega Vert is more self-feeding. Another reason to buy the Omega Vert series, if you want to juice a lot of fruits. Now, if you are going to juice fruits, which I don't recommend in the first place, because when you juice fruits, you remove the fiber, and the fiber is in fruits, in my opinion, to help regulate the absorption of the sugar into our bloodstream. So I would prefer that you eat fruits whole or blend them. But if you do want to juice them, in my opinion, the Omega Vert juicers will juice fruits better. Now, these ones will also juice fruits, but what do I mean by juice fruits better? With less hassle and produce a little bit higher yield. That being said, if you are going to juice fruits, you got to get nice, firm, fresh fruits. If you get apples, you need them nice and hard. If you do want to juice peaches, which I don't recommend, you need to get firm peaches. Any fruits that are nice and soft, don't even try to juice, because you're going to make apple sauce if you're juicing soft apples. Very important, proper produce selection when actually juicing fruits or vegetables. Once again, on the vegetables, you want to select nice, fresh leaves that are not too old and hard. And just in general, you want to be eating the freshest foods possible for the best results for you and also for the juicers. So fruits, I would go with these guys. So you can see if you want to juice a lot of greens, these guys are better. If you want to juice a lot of fruits, these guys are better. But the situation may arise that somebody says, John, I want to juice everything. What do I buy? Well, then we could drill it down to a couple more factors. So just like when buying a new VCR in the olden days, you'd have to read the instruction manual and figure out how to program it. The Omega Vert juicer is a little bit more harder to learn how to use, because you first got to learn how to put it together, and then there's certain procedures you should follow when juicing to obtain optimal results. So I have a video entitled Juicing in the Omega Vert Best Practices, and that explains how to juice in the Omega Vert. You should cut up things into fine, small pieces, feed things in certain orderings. And you know, some people like the technical stuff like that, and some people don't. If you don't like the technical stuff, you don't want to, follow things exactly how you're supposed to do it to get the best results in the vert, then guess what? You should go for one of these machines. Literally, you can't really mess up one of these machines. You just push stuff in, it comes out. The reason why that this machine is a little bit more challenging to use is because this has what's called a pulp flap. Now the pulp flap on this machine, let me show that to you guys, keeps the pulp in here longer so that you get a full pressing and actually probably a higher yield. And this is the pulp flap right here. It's this little yellow tab right here, and what this tab does when you push it all the way in, it keeps back pressure on the produce to allow it to get a full yield. The other thing to remember on the Omega Vert is that it has a small ejection port. So the port's really small, so things can tend to back up in there if you're not using the proper procedures to juice in it, like cutting up things small and taking your time when feeding things into the juicer. So once again, if you don't like following specific directions, you just want to be able to just put everything in there and it juices, go for one of these guys. If, for example, you want to be able to clean it fast, because a juicer that's hard to clean will not get used, because if you think, oh, I'm going to juice, but it's a pain in the butt to clean, you're not going to use it, then these guys are the easiest juicers in the world that I've found to clean. They take me about 1.5 minutes. The cleaning on this guy is a little bit more intensive. It takes me 3 minutes, which is still pretty much nothing. That being said, if you want to minimize your juicing time overall, in general, these guys, because they do have a larger auger, larger feed chute, it will juice a little bit quicker than this. But once again, on the flip side, the cleanup time is going to be quicker on this. Let's see some other things about which juicer to buy is, besides just juicing, the 8000 series is a multi-purpose machine. It's actually called the Nutrition Center. So what does that mean? That means it comes with what's called a blank plate. So this is the blank plate here. You can see this is a solid piece instead of the juicing screen that has the holes, and in addition, instead of these holes, it's just solid. So what happens when you put this in here, it pretty much acts like an old-fashioned meat grinder. You put something in here, it literally grinds it up. So if you put coffee beans in here, it'll make ground up coffee. If you put in roasted peanuts, it'll basically congeal it, grind it up, and make a nut butter. If you put raw nuts through here, it'll make a nut flour, because the oil content in the raw nuts generally aren't high enough to get it to stick together unless you feed it through a couple times or add extra oil into the mixture. I do have a specific video demonstrating in the Omega 8006 how to make nut butters properly in the 8006. And the other thing that this will allow you to do is make things like pâtés, but the most popular thing for this, if you want to better your diet and increase your diet of fruits and vegetables, is it'll allow you to make what's called frozen banana ice cream. Now, there is no cream in the frozen banana ice cream, but there is 100% banana, so more appropriately it could be called frozen fruit sorbets. This will let you make frozen fruit sorbets. So instead of eating ice cream that can be high in calories, have the cream in there that's really fattening, have extra added sugar and extra added preservatives, you can now use peeled, frozen, whole, ripe bananas through the machine to make something that comes out in the frozen yogurt consistency, like those machines, you know, at the restaurants that you get out a little frozen yogurt cone. Literally a frozen banana will come out like this. I do have a video showing that as well. And you could put in other frozen fruits in this machine to make frozen fruit sorbets. And this is an excellent idea for people that want to eat less calories and get healthier by eating fruits instead of processed foods. So the blank plate, very useful. Now the Omega Verts, on the other hand, they don't include a blank plate, so you can't really do those functions unless you want to try to do them with a screen, which isn't optimal to do it that way. This machine, for the most part, has been designed for juicing. You should only juice in here. Another thing I would recommend you do is you make a list of everything you want to juice or that you want to do with your juicer. So say you want to juice, carrots, apples, collard leaves, kale. Write down a list of all the things you want to juice. Then write down what percentage of those things you'll be juicing. So if you add up everything but the leafy greens and the wheatgrass and you get more than 60%, then I would go with these guys. So for example, my list is going to include watermelon, oranges, apples, cucumbers, kale, cilantro, and then I'm going to put of the watermelon, I want to juice that 30% of the time. I want to juice apples 30% of the time. Then I get down to the kale, it's going to be like 10% of the time. Cilantro is going to be 5%. I'm going to add up all the numbers, and most of the time I'm going to not be juicing leafy greens. Then these guys would be better. If you want to juice like fruits most of the time, then these guys are going to be better. But if you want to juice leaves most of the time, then these guys are going to be better. You might be thinking, hey John, what juicer do you own and sits on your counter all the time? Well, actually I have an Omega Vert 350 HD and the Omega 8004 sitting on my counter. And which one I use depends on specifically what I'm going to be juicing that day. So for example, if I want to make an almond milk, then I'm going to use the Omega Vert. That does a lot better than the 8004. If I'm going to make frozen banana sorbet, then I'm going to use this one. If I'm juicing straight pineapple, then I'm going to use this one. If I'm juicing greens from my garden and a little bit of cucumber, then I'm going to use this one. If I'm juicing like cucumbers and peppers, then I'm going to use this one. So I have the luxury of owning two machines. Now, yes, you can do that too, and I'd love for you to buy two juicers from me, one of each of these. But in most cases, you probably don't have to do that. In most cases, one or the other is going to do the best job for you. So to sum this video up, it's a pretty clean-cut line. If you don't like hassles, you want to just be able to feed things in and not think about it, get one of these guys, the 8000 series. If you're going to juice a lot of leafy greens or wheatgrass, like more than 60% of those, then get these guys. They're going to be much less headaches. They're going to work really great. If you want to be able to do the multi-functions like make the frozen banana sorbets, you want to get into further additional lifestyle changes besides just juicing, then you want to go for these guys. On the Omega Verts, if you want to juice mostly fruits, then you want to go with the Omega Vert. If you're juicing a combination of things, including carrot, some cucumbers and apples and greens, then you want to go for these guys. If you want more convenience, you don't have to sit there and feed things in as much, then I would go for the Omega Verts because they generally juice a little bit quicker. But please be aware with the Omega Verts, you want to watch my video, Juicing in the Omega Vert Best Practices. Just search for Juicing Best Practices, it'll come up. That's a very critical video that you watch to know how this machine works specifically so that you can get the best results every time. So no matter which juicer you buy, I'm confident if you buy one of these Omega juicers, you're going to get many years of useful service out of them, as they all have at least 10-year warranties, and these guys have 15-year warranties, the longest warranty in the juicer industry. So hopefully this video has answered the question, which juicer should you buy? Once again, my name is John Kohler with DiscountJuicers.com. Be sure to visit DiscountJuicers.com/YouTube for special promotional offers for our YouTube visitors.